Now from Portland, Oregon, to talk more about the world of motorsport is Sarah Shelton. She's an automotive journalist at US News and World Report. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rachelle.
So it's pretty incredible. Is this really the 1,000th World Championship Formula One race? And why is this so significant?
Well, that's a little bit of a misnomer. You sort of have to put your thumb on the scale to get to 1,000, just because it's a little bit complicated when it comes to counting actual Grand Prix races. But, you know, a lot of estimates are that it's closer to the 974th actual Grand Prix. But regardless of that, it was a great celebration in China, and in a rare move, drivers were allowed to wear commemorative helmets. And so we saw some great retro looks on the heads of drivers like Daniel Ricciardo and Nico Hülkenberg.
And it's interesting because Formula One viewership made a bit of a comeback in 2018, just as there were concerns that the interest was waning a bit the year before. And we know that Brazil, Germany, and Italy are the top 3 countries in terms of cumulative viewership. But then China, it saw the fastest viewership growth. What is the sport getting right marketing-wise?
Well, I think that one of the things that's helping when it comes to China itself is we're seeing a great surge of enthusiasts for both performance vehicles and luxury vehicles coming from China. And we're also starting to see Chinese take more of a liking to go-kart racing, which of course then leads to Formula One racing.
Now, the newer all-electric Formula E held its inaugural championship in Beijing back in 2014. But how does that motorsport's growth and potential compare to Formula One?
So they're not quite at the same viewership that Formula One is at, but their approach is so very different that they're making a much closer connection with the fans. The podiums, for example, when the drivers are accepting the end results of the race, they're right in the mix with fans. And fans of Formula E races get a chance to vote so that their favorite drivers get little bonuses within the race itself. And so because of this different approach that they're taking, fans are they're really latching on to Formula E, even though we're only in season 5.
Now let's look at the fan base. I mean, other than how these vehicles are powered, what are some of the biggest differences between Formula E and Formula One, whether it's their championship circuits or how the fan base has developed?
There are major differences between these. With Formula One, they are mostly run on purpose-built tracks around the globe. With Formula E, these are all street races, which means that they're coming to a lot of cities that Formula One can't go to, like New York and Paris. And a lot of times, fans get to see these races for a fraction of the price of a Formula One race. And so that's making it much more accessible to fans in a lot of ways.
And how do these differences affect the drivers themselves and their decision in picking which circuit to race for?
So it's interesting because Felipe Massa, he was once a racer for Formula One, and he has now moved over to Formula E. And he says that the strategies are vastly different with Formula E, part of because you're very much focused on the battery management, but also because he says it's a much more fun series. Of course, they're still very competitive when they're out on the track, but when they're off the track, it's not quite as cutthroat as it is in Formula One.
And what about competition and investment? How big is Formula E, and what sort of investment are we seeing going into it?
Well, again, you don't have to pay quite as much to get into Formula E as you do into Formula One. The tracks themselves, to build a Formula One track, you're looking at $240 to $270 million. For a city to host a Formula E race, you're looking at more like $24 million. And then the cars themselves, as you mentioned earlier, Formula E cars are capped at about $940. That's for a ready-to-race vehicle, where for a Formula One car, it's estimated closer to $15 million per car.
Certainly a very big difference. Now, some experts also say that Formula One is 90% politics and 10% sport because of the decision-making progress and how the sport's rules are created. What are your thoughts on that, and whether Formula E faces similar issues?
I think that Formula E, one of the greatest advantages it has right now is that they do have some rules. They don't have the level of politics that Formula One has, in my opinion. And one of the great things about Formula E as well is you mentioned that there's been 7 races this season and 7 different winners. And so it's not so much just held down by 2 or 3 different teams, but we're seeing a lot of shakeup when it comes to drivers and when it comes to teams of who is excelling each time. And I think that makes it a much more enjoyable series for fans to watch.
All right, Sarah Shelton, automotive journalist at US News and World Report. Thanks so much.
Thank you.